describes who was the informing, indwelling being of the earth before she became earth. Now, there are many names for the goddess in many cultures, indigenous cultures, classic cultures, Greek, Roman, and so forth. But Sophia is a unique name because it is the name that identifies the earth in the only myth that tells you who the earth was before she became the earth, you see? And the Sophia myth is a galactic myth. This is also unique. It tells a story of something that happened in our galaxy, not in the universe at large, not in the mystic metaphysical reaches of space and time, but right here in the home galaxy. And it explains that a divine being, a goddess called Sophia, inhabiting the center of the galaxy, was instrumental in engineering the human genome. So it also explains the origin of the human species. We do not come from another planetary system. We were not created by extraterrestrial super race, at least according to the Gnostics. They denied that rumor. We were actually engineered, the human genome was actually engineered in the center of the galaxy that we now inhabit. And Sophia was one of the engineers of this great project, which I call the divine experiment. So you have a tremendous amount of information in this myth about the origin of the earth, the origin of the human race, the origin of the archontic or alien mind parasites that were inadvertently produced in the early phase of the solar system, the way the solar system arose before the earth did, and the earth was formed from an entirely different set of laws than the rest of the solar system, and became captured in the inorganic clockworks of the solar system. The way that the archons operate and inhabit the planetary system, the way that humanity came to emerge on Earth, and basically the amazing fact that the Earth itself, the planet Earth, is actually a metamorphosis of this divine goddess that was in the galactic center. So we are actually the Earth, and none of the other planets in the solar system are such. Only the Earth is a direct outgrowth, as it were, of divine stellar plasmic energies from the galactic center. So this is a remarkable myth. It fits in a lot of ways with Gaia theory. It fits in with plasma theory, plasma cosmology. And finally, the really wonderful thing I feel about the Sophia myth is that it's interactive and it's open-ended. There is no end to this myth. The final chapter has not been written. And the Gnostics made it very clear that the story of the divine Sophia is not a story that has an apocalyptic ending. It doesn't have a pre-written conclusion. The conclusion of this myth is the collaboration between the anthropos, humanity, and Sophia, the goddess. It depends upon a collaboration, a recognition, and a power sharing between us and her. And so the myth is interactive. We're now in the interactive phase of the myth. And the way that the myth ends, the way that it resolves itself, depends to a certain degree on us and on Sophia. So all of that is truly, truly remarkable if you think about it. And it also gives you some idea of how this myth from the pagan mysteries cannot be compared to any other myth that we have inherited from the past.
Okay, so if it's incomplete, then the Sophia myth, how can it inform our actions now at this time in world history? Does it offer any practical solutions for now?
If you're talking about practical solutions to particular social problems, I would say yes, it can. For instance, I would say it can offer a practical solution to the free energy problem. Because why don't we have free energy? You know, if we had free energy on this planet, and by the way, free energy has to be free. So I'm not talking about free energy devices that only millionaires could afford, okay? If we had a free energy accessible to the public at large, we could build a utopia, social utopia on Earth, because it would eliminate competition and control through the control of resources. And how could this myth resolve the problem of free energy? Well, do you want to know how free energy works? One way to find out is to learn from the goddess herself. The goddess is a teacher. The Celeste, or the seers of the mystery schools, learned directly from Sophia through the medium of the organic light. And they learned many, many things about nature, and the supernatural worlds and the cosmos at large. And then they turned around, because they were the teachers and educators of the human race, and taught those things to the ancient world. That's why the ancient world in Europe, in pre-Christian Europe, was highly literate and highly civilized, because all kinds of scientific, artistic, mathematical, musical, astronomical knowledge was acquired by this group of people who could be interactive with the planetary mind, the planetary goddess. So there are many solutions that could be given to our world. The solution of how to deal with predators, how to deal with that part of the human species that preys on the other part, or the only species that I know of where some members prey on the other members. The answer to how to deal with a predatory species could be found by direct interaction with Gaia. And by that, I mean by communicating with her. And just as I'm communicating with you, I'm not talking about some sentimental idea of going back to nature. So all of this would fall into the category of what the Gnostics called Gaia's correction. You see, in the myth they said that when she became so infatuated with the experiment that could unfold with the human race, that she fell into the experiment. She got involved in it. This is the meaning of the fall of the wisdom goddess. So she's deeply involved in our experiment here on Earth. Our experiment is going badly wrong. Why? Because we're not in touch with her, who was the originator of the experiment. So the whole course of humanity could be corrected through this Gaian-Sophianic connection. And once the connection is made, that's the first step, obviously, then particular social problems or particular scientific problems could be undertaken in the context of that profound interactivity with her.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
John, just a follow-up. It's obviously quite interesting that we're approaching 2012 and an alignment with the center of the galaxy, and that's where Sophia was born. So it's quite interesting in the 20,000-year cycle. But my question was, obviously meditators, a lot of the Eastern meditators get into a state of samadhi, and I'm just wondering if that is the state where we can actually communicate with Sophia.
Yes, it is, but in their way of getting into it, they don't reach her. So, at least I don't see any evidence that they do. So, the Asian tradition of mysticism has as its highest goal the state of samadhi. For instance, a classical example would be Yogananda's experience of samadhi, described in his book, The Autobiography of a Yogi. I don't know if you've ever heard of that book, but it's a classic.
Yeah, I've read it. Yep.
Yeah, it came out in 1945. Everyone really should read that book to get a picture of what it was really like to be a yogi who experienced superconsciousness. And he describes it vividly in detail, his experience of samadhi, and how he could see the structure of the galaxy, how he had a cosmic vision, how he saw everything. As you know, some shamans do as well. They can see on the galactic scale, they can see on the molecular scale. We as a species are gifted with these occult powers and the potential for samadhi But the samadhi of Gaia is a very particular kind of attention. It's not simply the attainment of the state of cosmic consciousness, but it's a relational experience in that state. So you're not just going to the core of the galaxy or going into some kind of cosmic bliss. You're actually encountering and meeting the living divinity of the earth. And that is in the state of samadhi, but it's what you would call a samadhi sambhija, with content.
Thank you, John. Uranus, you have a question for John.
Hi, John.
Hi there.
Hi. I've got 3 form questions from Green Meadow. And the first one is, I have seen earthquakes as a birth contraction wave and as a kundalini wave. How do you see them? If it is a birth process, what are we birthing?
Right. I've seen them that way too. In fact, right here in Andalusia, where I often go to sacred places in the hills, I usually do my shamanic rites in places where I can look at the Sierra de Vivar, which is a mountain range to the west of Ronda, a very beautiful mountain range. And I've seen that mountain range rippling like a great serpent. I take this to be the perception of the planetary kundalini, but I wouldn't necessarily equate it with a birthing process. I'm very careful about this, with this metaphor of birthing. I'm a little careful, especially when it comes to Gaia and the planet. You have to understand her. And I understand that there is planetary kundalini activating very powerfully right now. It is connected with the change in the polarization of the magnetic field of the Earth, about the breakdown in the turbulence in the magnetic field, and many other changes. The kundalini of Gaia is really coming on strong. But bear in mind something that the tantrics always emphasize, that the nature of kundalini is bliss, and it has nothing to do with biological reproduction. So the same holds for Gaia, for the planet herself. The nature of her kundalini is a force of bliss, and it has nothing to do with her giving birth to anything. I don't think that she's giving birth. I wouldn't use that metaphor. My metaphor for Gaia right now, especially this since the last month, with this tremendous earthquake in Japan and the other seismic activity, my metaphor for Gaia would be this. She is like a big, big ship, like a big ocean liner. Let's call her the mother ship. And she has been on a journey for a long time, but due to the peculiarities at the beginning of her journey, she lost her navigational orientation to the place she came from. The Gnostic myth says this. When Sophia fell out of the galactic center, she found herself removed from the aeons, the divinities of the galactic center. She lost communication. And part of the myth we're living now is how she corrects her course and goes back into communication with the center of the galaxy. So the mothership is in stormy seas right now.